The darkest days of winter had come to Midgard, a time when the sun lingered only briefly in the sky, before retreating behind a veil of frost and shadow. Snow blanketed the land in endless white, and the biting cold seeped into even the warmest of hearths. Yet, amidst the icy grip of the season, there was always the promise of Jólablót, the sacred Yule Feast. It was a time when fires roared high in great halls, offerings were made to the gods, and songs of hope echoed across the frozen fields. But this year, the fires struggled to burn, the offerings felt unanswered, and a creeping unease settled over the people. The sun, their steadfast ally, faltered, its light dimming as if it too feared the encroaching darkness. Far above in the shimmering halls of Asgard, Odin, the All-Father, watched the realms with a troubled gaze. The icy winds of Jotunheim whispered of a restless force. Skoll, the great wolf who chased the sun, had grown bolder. If left unchecked, his hunger would devour the light, plunging the 9 realms into an eternal winter. To save the sun and the fragile balance of the cosmos, Odin set forth on a perilous quest. With him traveled Thrud, his granddaughter and fierce shield maiden, and Vor, a mortal girl whose name spoke of oaths and renewal. Together, they ventured into the frozen heart of Jotunheim, where the mythical Yule Flame, the last hope of rekindling the sun's strength, lay hidden amidst treacherous ice and the wrath of the Frost Queen, Grimnara. Welcome to Hugin and Munin Stories. This is our story, The Yule Flame, Odin's gift of light. Chapter 1. Shadows of the Sun. The frost lay thick upon the land, a relentless shroud that stole warmth from the earth and hope from the hearts of men. Snow piled high against the walls of the humble village of Fjordholm, where even the strongest of hearths could not chase away the bitter chill that crept through the cracks. The villagers whispered of a winter like no other, darker, colder, and more unyielding than any in memory. The sun, once a steadfast companion, seemed weary, its light fading earlier with each passing day. In a modest hut on the edge of the village lived a girl named Vor. The daughter of a fisherman and a weaver, she spent her days tending to the hearth, stitching worn garments, and helping her parents scrape together what little they could from the frozen seas and the threadbare land. Yet Vor was no ordinary child, though she would never have claimed otherwise. There was a quiet strength about her, an unspoken resilience that set her apart. Her name, given in honor of the goddess Var, spoke of oaths and promises, but in her mother's heart it also whispered of spring, of new beginnings, and the faintest promise of light in the darkest times. Vor had always felt the world differently than others. When she stood beneath the bare branches of the great oak that marked the village square, she could feel the quiet murmur of the earth beneath the snow. When the wind howled across the fjord, it carried more than cold. It brought whispers of something ancient, something vast. Yet despite these inklings, she had never seen herself as remarkable. She was simply Vor, a fisherman's daughter, a weaver's helper. But now as the sun faltered in its journey and the frost clawed deeper into the village, something stirred in her. It began with dreams, vivid, half-remembered visions of light and fire, of wolves with glowing eyes and a great flame cradled in darkness. She told no one of these dreams, unsure if they were a gift or a curse. It was on the longest night of the year, as the village prepared for Jólablót, that the first sign of change came. The festival fires, meant to honor the gods and summon the sun's return, struggled to catch. The kindling was dry, the oil plentiful, but the flames faltered, guttering out like dying breaths. An uneasy murmur rippled through the crowd. Even the skalds, who sang the ancient songs of hope, faltered in their verses. Vor stood at the edge of the gathering, clutching her cloak tightly around her as she watched the flames flicker and die. Far above, in the shimmering halls of Asgard, Odin, the All-Father, stood upon Hlidskjalf, his throne of sight. From his vantage point, he gazed across the 9 realms, his single eye narrowed in concern. The great wolves of the heavens, Skoll and Hati, had long chased the sun and the moon across the skies, as they were destined to do until the end of days. But now, Skoll was growing restless, his hunger no longer bound by the rhythms of the world. The wolf's relentless pursuit had drawn the sun dangerously close to its doom. If the golden orb fell into his jaws, Fenrir, the dread wolf of Ragnarok, would rise, and an eternal winter would consume the realms. Odin turned to his ravens, Hugin and Munin, who perched upon the gilded arms of his throne. Their feathers gleamed with frost, their eyes glinting with otherworldly knowledge. "Speak," he commanded, his voice low and thunderous. "What stirs this shadow upon the sun?" The ravens answered in unison, their voices cold and clear. Skoll tightens his chase, All-Father. His hunger grows, and with it, the light falters. If the Yule flame is not rekindled, the sun will fall, and with it, all life across the 9 realms. Odin's expression darkened. The Yule flame was no ordinary fire. It was a relic of creation, a fragment of the primordial light that first shaped the cosmos. Hidden deep within the icy heart of Jotunheim, it was guarded by the frost giants and their queen, Hrimnara, whose icy dominion thrived in darkness and cold. To retrieve it would require more than his strength alone. The All-Father called for his granddaughter, Thrud, a shield maiden as bold as thunder. Her strength was legendary among the Aesir, but it was not strength alone that Odin needed. The Yule flame could not be claimed by might. It required a spark of its own, a connection to the divine forces that had birthed it. And so Odin descended to Midgard to seek out the one mortal who carried that spark, Vor. The arrival of Odin in Fjordholm was a moment that would be told in hushed tones for generations. The All-Father came cloaked in shadows and frost, his single eye blazing with the fire of stars. Gungnir, his spear, gleamed like lightning in the twilight. At his side stood Thrud, her presence as commanding as a thunderstorm. The villagers knelt before them, their breath visible in the freezing air. Odin's gaze fell upon Vor, who stood frozen in the crowd. The All-Father stepped forward, his voice resonant and ancient. "Child of Midgard, daughter of Var, do you know why I have come?" Vor shook her head, her voice catching in her throat. I am no one, All-Father. Why would you come for me?" Odin knelt, his immense form folding with surprising grace as he met her gaze. "You are more than you know, Vor. Your name is not an accident. You carry within you the spark of spring, of renewal. The blood of the Vanir flows in your veins, and with it, the power to awaken the Yule flame. Without it, the sun will perish, and darkness will consume us all. Will you come?" Her heart raced. The weight of his words pressed upon her like the winter's frost. Yet within her something stirred, an ember, faint but unyielding. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I will go." And so, Vor, Odin and Thrud set forth into the endless winter, their journey just beginning. Chapter 2. The Frozen Realm. The journey to Jotunheim began beneath a sky heavy with iron-grey clouds, the wind howling across the frozen fjords like a living thing. Vor wrapped herself tightly in the heavy cloak her mother had woven, though no cloth could fully shield against the bitter cold. At her side strode Thrud, the shield maiden's every step purposeful and unyielding. Odin led them, his towering presence a beacon against the bleak expanse, Gungnir in hand, and Hugin and Munin circling above like shadows against the dim sky. As they pressed deeper into the wilderness, the land seemed to change, growing harsher with every step. The snowdrifts deepened, the ice groaned beneath their feet, and the wind carried whispers, half-heard words that chilled Vor more than the frost. She tried to ignore them, but they seemed to follow her, teasing the edges of her mind. Thrud noticed her unease. "The winds here carry the voices of the frost giants," she said, her voice steady but low. "They seek to sow doubt and fear. Do not listen." Vor nodded, her grip tightening on the staff Odin had given her, a simple thing of ashwood, yet it thrummed faintly with warmth, as if alive. She looked up at Thrud, drawing strength from the shield maiden's confidence. "Have you faced them before, the frost giants?" "Many times," Thrud replied, her tone betraying neither fear nor arrogance. "They are cunning and cruel, but they can be bested. Courage is their greatest enemy. Remember that, Vor." Despite Thrud's reassurance, the first ambush came suddenly and brutally. They were crossing a narrow gorge, the frozen river below gleaming like black glass, when the frost giants struck. Their forms loomed out of the storm, towering figures of ice and shadow. Their weapons, forged of enchanted frost, shimmered with a deadly light. Odin reacted first, raising Gungnir high. The spear sang as it flew, striking true and shattering the lead giant into a cascade of ice. Thrud roared, her axe flashing as she charged into the fray, each swing cleaving through her enemies with precision and fury. Vor stood frozen, her heart pounding as the chaos unfolded around her. A giant turned its gaze upon her, its icy eyes burning with malice. It raised a jagged blade, and for a moment, Vor's legs refused to move. "Vor, focus!" Odin's voice cut through the storm like a blade. "Feel the spark within you." Her breath caught. The staff in her hand seemed to pulse, the faint warmth within it growing stronger. She gripped it tightly, closing her eyes and reaching inward, searching for the ember Odin had spoken of. When she opened her eyes again, she felt it, a surge of heat rushing through her veins. She raised the staff, and from its tip erupted a burst of light, brilliant and golden. The giant recoiled, its icy form cracking and splintering before it crumbled into shards. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun, the giants retreating into the storm. Thrud wiped her axe clean, her expression unreadable. Odin retrieved Gungnir, his eye fixed on Vor. "You are beginning to understand," he said, "but the road ahead will demand far more of you." Days turned into weeks as they pressed deeper into Jotunheim. The landscape grew ever more hostile, the snow giving way to jagged ice fields and towering glaciers. The sun, already feeble, seemed to fade further, casting the world in a twilight that never ended. Vor began to notice strange things. The way the ice seemed to shift when she wasn't looking. The shadows that moved just beyond the edge of her vision. One evening, as they camped beneath an overhang of ice, Vor approached Odin. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice barely louder than the wind. "It feels alive." "It is alive," Odin replied, his voice deep and distant. "Jotunheim is the realm of the frost giants, but it is also an extension of their queen's will. Hrimnara's power flows through every snowflake, every shard of ice. She knows we are here." Vor shivered, though not from the cold. "And she will stop us?" "She will try," Odin said, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "But she cannot stop what has already begun. The spark within you is growing, Vor. You are the spring to her winter. Remember that." Their final trial before reaching the heart of Jotunheim came in the form of the frozen labyrinth. It was a maze of towering ice walls, their surfaces so smooth and reflective that it was impossible to tell what was real and what was an illusion. The cold here was sharper, almost alive, clawing at them with an intensity that made even Thrud falter. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent. They spoke of despair, of failure, of the futility of their quest. Vor struggled to block them out, but doubt crept in. Was she truly meant to be here? Could she, a simple girl from Fjordholm, truly carry the spark needed to reignite the Yule Flame? Thrud noticed her hesitation. "Do not let the maze take you," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "This is what it wants. Doubt is its weapon. You are stronger than you know, Vor." Vor took a shaky breath, clutching her staff tightly. She closed her eyes, focusing inward once more. The warmth was there, faint but steady, a promise of light in the darkness. She held onto it, letting it guide her steps. When they finally emerged from the labyrinth, the sight before them took their breath away. They stood at the edge of a vast frozen lake, its surface glittering with an otherworldly light. At its center burned the Yule Flame, a small but radiant fire that seemed to hold all the warmth and light of the sun. Yet it was weak, its flickering edges struggling against the encroaching frost. Beyond the flame stood Hrimnara, the Queen of Winter. She was a figure of haunting beauty, her form wreathed in frost and shadow. Her eyes, like twin glaciers, fixed on them with an icy rage. "You dare to enter my domain," she hissed, her voice echoing like cracking ice. "The flame belongs to the cold. It will never return to the light." Odin stepped forward, Gungnir gleaming in the dim light. "The flame belongs to all, Hrimnara. Stand aside or face the wrath of the All-Father." Hrimnara smiled, a chilling expression. "Then come, All-Father. Let us see if your light can withstand my winter." The battle was upon them. Chapter 3. The Heart of Winter. The frozen lake groaned beneath their feet, the sound sharp and reverberating in the unnatural silence that followed Hrimnara's challenge. The Queen of Winter stepped forward, her form a seamless blend of spectral beauty and jagged menace. Frost spiraled outward with every step she took, the very air around her growing colder, the light of the Yule Flame flickering weakly against her encroaching power. Odin raised Gungnir, its point glowing with a faint golden light. "Your reign of frost ends here, Hrimnara," he said, his voice resonating like a thunderclap. Beside him, Thrud hefted her axe, her eyes blazing with defiance. Vor, though trembling, gripped her staff tightly, feeling the warmth within it surge ever so slightly. Hrimnara's laugh rang out, brittle and sharp. "Fools, the Yule Flame is mine now. You will find no spring here, no thaw to your futile hope, only cold, only death." With a wave of her hand, she summoned the frost giants, their towering forms emerging from the shadows of the labyrinth behind them. The ground beneath the trio cracked and splintered as jagged spikes of ice erupted around them, forcing them apart. Odin charged forward, his spear slicing through the air in a brilliant arc. The frost giants converged on him, but his movements were swift and unyielding, each strike of Gungnir sending shards of ice scattering into the wind. Thrud fought with ferocity, her axe gleaming like fire as she carved a path through the icy behemoths. But it was Vor who felt the weight of the moment pressing hardest upon her. Hrimnara's gaze fell upon her, piercing and cold. "You are the weakest among them," the queen hissed. A mortal child clinging to a spark you do not understand. You should not have come. Vor felt the chill of Hrimnara's words seep into her very bones. She stumbled, her breath freezing in the air. Doubt crept in, whispering of failure, of her own insignificance. But then she remembered the words of Odin and Thrud, their belief in her, the spark she carried. She tightened her grip on the staff, closing her eyes and reaching inward once more. "You are not winter," she murmured, her voice growing stronger. "You are not death. I am Vor. I am spring. I am life." The warmth within her surged, brighter and stronger than ever before. The staff began to glow, a golden light bursting forth and cutting through the frost. Hrimnara recoiled, shielding her face as the light drove back her icy power. Meanwhile, Odin faced his own trial. Skoll, the great wolf, emerged from the shadows of the lake, his massive form blotting out what little light remained. The wolf's eyes burned with hunger, its teeth bared in a snarl that sent shivers through the Allfather's ancient heart. This was no ordinary foe. Skoll was a creature of the end times, a harbinger of Ragnarok. Odin met the wolf's gaze, his grip on Gungnir tightening. "You seek the sun, but you will not have it," he declared. The wolf lunged, and Odin moved to meet it, his spear flashing like a lightning strike. The two clashed in a ferocious battle, the ground shaking beneath their fury. Skoll's jaws snapped inches from Odin's throat, but the Allfather was relentless, driving the wolf back with every strike of his spear. Still, the wolf's strength was immense, its hunger insatiable. Odin's arm trembled as he held his ground, knowing that his fight was as much a distraction as it was a battle. At the heart of the lake, Vor and Thrud faced Hrimnara together. The queen's fury was palpable, her power lashing out in waves of frost that threatened to engulf them. Thrud deflected the attacks with her shield, her axe striking again and again at the icy ground, creating cracks that spread toward the queen's feet. "Vor, the flame!" Thrud shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "You must reach it." Vor nodded, her heart pounding. She focused on the light within her, letting it guide her steps as she moved toward the flickering Yule flame. Each step felt like a battle, the frost clawing at her, the whispers of doubt growing louder. But with every breath, she drew strength from the spark, the warmth pushing back the cold. As she reached the flame, Hrimnara turned her full attention to Vor. "No!" the queen screamed, her form twisting as she unleashed a torrent of ice and shadow. Vor raised her staff, the light blazing from its tip, meeting the attack head-on. The two forces collided, the air crackling with power. "You cannot defeat me!" Hrimnara shrieked. "I am winter eternal." Vor's voice rose above the storm. "And I am spring, the promise of light." With a final surge of will, she thrust her staff into the heart of the flame. The Yule flame roared to life, its light blinding and pure. The ice around it melted instantly, the warmth spreading outward in a radiant wave. Hrimnara let out a final piercing cry as the light consumed her, her form dissolving into mist. The frost giants faltered, their strength waning as the queen's power was broken. Odin, seeing the surge of light, drove Gungnir into Skoll's flank with all his might. The wolf howled in pain, retreating into the shadows as the Yule flame's power reached him. The sun, no longer within his grasp, began to rise, its golden rays piercing the clouds and scattering the darkness. As the light returned, the lake transformed. The ice melted, revealing clear, shining water. The frost giants vanished, and the warmth of the Yule flame filled the air. Vor stood at the flame's edge, her staff now glowing faintly, her face radiant with triumph. Odin and Thrud joined her, their expressions filled with pride. "You have done what no mortal or god could do alone," Odin said. The Yule flame burns bright once more, and with it the hope of all 9 realms. Vor smiled, though tears filled her eyes. I am just Vor, a girl from Fjordholm. Odin placed a hand on her shoulder. You are more. You are spring, the renewal that follows even the harshest winter. And your name will be remembered. The journey home was filled with light, the sun shining brighter than it had in weeks. When Vor returned to Fjordholm, her village was ablaze with celebration. The Yule Flame's triumph had reached even their small corner of Midgard. Vor, though humbled, was hailed as a hero, a living symbol of hope and renewal. In Asgard, Odin and Thrud recounted the tale, and the gods honored Vor's courage. The Yule flame, now burning stronger than ever, stood as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light could be rekindled. And with that, we say goodbye for this time. Thank you for listening to our story. The Yule Flame, Odin's gift of light.